Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom.
We
Yes,
are. Oh
we
man.
are. There it is. There's always that little uncomfortable delay, right? Between the Facebook Live and the live. You're like, am I live? Am I? What's going on right now?
Exactly. I feel alive. I don't know about how about you. It's
I feel alive too, man. It's funny. I'm a big hiker, and so I just got back from a little trip to North Carolina, and you don't appreciate spring as much when you're not in the seasons all the time, and when you travel into some place with spring and you see the little budding leaves come out, it's a great reminder of life and of new birth and of all the fun that's coming.
yeah, no, it's definitely a wonderful time of year, and I see some folks are joining us, which is great. But I live in Las Vegas, and at this time of year, the spring birds come out, and they're really, you hear their song first thing in the morning. My favorite time of the day at the moment is kind of about 6 p.m. They're all settling down for the night, and they're just so noisy and so beautiful. So yeah, I love this time of year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I never thought about it until being here in Texas because I'm originally from Michigan. But the migration of these singing and songbirds and the hummingbirds come right through Texas and Vegas, and it's something that you really do appreciate in the spring when you've been here for a while. Welcome everybody who's joining us. Would love to see we got Vegas and Austin in the house here with my man Matt and myself. So would love to see where everybody's from. Don't be shy. Let us know where you're from in the chat there. So how long have you been in Vegas, Matt?
So I've been in Vegas since 2 weeks prior to the pandemic, which was hilarious as we got the anticipation of enjoying all things outdoors and, of course, the events and the shows. But, of course, that got stopped pretty quickly. But we feel very fortunate to be here because behind where we live, about 15 minutes away, you'll appreciate, Chris, is Red Rock Canyon. Absolutely.
I was there last year.
There you go.
Amazing, stunning, absolutely stunning. I went and picked up a friend out there in Vegas and decided to camp in Red Rock and instead of staying on the Strip, and it was quite a treat. It is a special place.
Yeah.
Speaking of special places, we are a special place today. Excited for Matt to be here. For all y'all who don't know, this is a great privilege to have this guy here with us today. He's going to be dropping some bombs, focusing on insights per word spoken. I'm going to say it over and over again because there's just some value that he gave me already before we even got on this call here. Oh, we got Tracy Malone from Chi-Town. What is up, Tracy? You are appreciating some spring right now. I know that. I'm from Michigan. So Benjamin from Washington, D.C. I haven't been to Washington, D.C. since I was a kid, but I heard it's one of the best walking cities in the country.
Oh my goodness, it absolutely is. I've done it twice now where I've been the tourist and brought friends, and it's just gorgeous. And my favorite thing was one time it was raining, I think it was fall, and I went out for an early morning run, and I went to the Lincoln Memorial. And I don't know if you've tried to get a selfie there without being surrounded by tourists, but it does not happen. And on that day in the rain, I got the photo. I'm very happy to have that. It's pretty cool.
Very nice, very nice. That's a special treat for sure. All right, we've got Kisher from Dubai. Hello, Kisher. Welcome. Dubai. Well, that place is moving right now. I haven't been there. I was there maybe 7-8 years ago, but I heard it's just completely unrecognizable from then already. Tanzania, East Africa. Welcome. Oh, Christopher, my man. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Christopher, that's amazing. So I got a friend who is recently in Zanzibar. Don't ask me why, but he was fortunate enough to have a very mild dose previously of COVID, so he felt safe traveling around, and so he was in Zanzibar. And I can tell you, remote work in Zanzibar specifically, the island, is not necessarily a good idea because it was kind of like the broadband speed of the old dial-up modems was what he was experiencing. But he had a lovely time.
Absolutely. I've got some great people that I work with, some virtual assistants from over there in Africa. Always be the challenge definitely is the internet signal, but just the people are just special over there. Well, listen, we are a group that starts on time, and I love that about us. So it is 1 o'clock, and we are going to get this show rolling. Y'all know me. I'm here all the time. Chris McCoy. I'm our host. I'm also the host of our Leads to Growth podcast. And I am our VP of Business Development here at the National Association of Sales Professionals. And we are very excited to have a special guest with us today, Matt Cameron. from SaaSy Sales Leadership. For all y'all who don't know, definitely check them out on LinkedIn and check out. We'll put their links in the page also on the replay here. But Matt is Matt's like that Liam Neeson guy. I got a special set of skills, right? Matt is a talented individual, and he's here to give you some insight. Chris, yes, we are recording. Y'all. This is an automatic record, which is great. But so Matt is here to give some insight. Now, as everybody knows, NASP, what are we known for? Well, we are the difference makers in behavior change, right? Most people come into sales and you can get all the tips and tricks and all the strategies and all the scripts and all the automation. But if you don't have the identity of a salesperson, it's very difficult to be successful. It's very difficult to move forward, to implement all these great tools that are out there, right? So that's what we really help y'all with. Now, alongside of that, once you've got the behavior transformed, once you've got the identity of a salesperson, your habits are now doing the work for you, that's when you start implementing strategy. That's when you start fine-tuning. That's when you start aligning with those experts, right? Those people who really know where they're at. And that's why Matt's here today. We can follow all the process and all the procedures, but every now and again, it's like a snake swallowing a mongoose or something like that. That deal just gets stuck halfway down the pipe, right? And there's nothing worse than being in a sales meeting every week or every month and being like, having your team leads ask you, what's going on with this deal? What's happening with this deal? And then have you going, I don't know, for the third, fourth, fifth week in a row. Like I'm not getting the communication. I don't know what happened, right? And this is a challenge that we all have, and it's a huge challenge in the CSO CFO relationship, right? Because all our finance team and the upper executive team, they want to move things along. They want to be able to have predictable numbers. And as salespeople, we want that same thing. But then there's this gap, right? There's this challenge of sometimes when big deals get stuck along that pipeline. So today we want to talk about what can we do on the front end to prevent those things from happening? And two, what can we do on the back end when we do find ourselves in one of those situations? And we got the expert here. Matt brought this topic to me. He's like, no, look, I've been talking to so many people about this, and this is a question I get asked all the time. So he's sharing his insight that he charges a lot of money for with us here today. And so, Matt, welcome, and thank you very much for being here, brother.
I am delighted to be here. Thanks for a lovely and generous introduction, Chris. It's awesome. So, folks on the call, happy to be with you today. And the way we're going to run this is that it's going to be a bit of a conversation between myself and Chris to illustrate some points. The key thing I want you to take out of this is how do we avoid from getting into that radio silence death valley position where you just don't have any answers? It reminds me, some friends of mine do that wrestling style jiu-jitsu. They'll always say, oh my goodness, when I end up in this terrible choke, how do I get out? And the answer is you don't get in it in the first place. And so we're going to start with that strategy, and then we're going to try and also figure out how to wiggle our way out if we get stuck. So to start with, how to start the deal so it doesn't fizzle. Then we're going to get tactical in terms of things you need to keep the deal moving forward. And I've got some language for you around that. And then we're also going to discuss my favorite thing, which is a silver bullet that can be used for ensuring that deals just don't slip. But there are some prerequisites we need for that. So,
everybody got their pens and paper out there? Make sure you're making notes on this. I'm going to send the recording out, but when you write it down, it sticks better. So go ahead, Matt. What do you got?
Thanks, Chris. All right. So here's the thing. You and I talked about this before our call, Chris. An analogy I like to use for a deal construction is that of a house, right? And the last thing we do with the house is we put on the paint, the razzle dazzle, if you will, right? And if we're thinking about winning a deal, the last thing we do is the contract negotiation or the final part of the deal. But it's set up on the foundation. As you can see in this image, sometimes our foundations aren't as strong as we need. And if you think about your team leads, sales managers, Chris, if you think about it, back when you were a rep, and you're having one-on-ones with your manager, specifically, what do they want to talk about in that weekly one-on-one? What are they focused on?
What's closing this week?
That is it. That is exactly right? And I'm hearing virtual nods all around the room, I'm sure. It's like, what are you going to close this week, this month, this quarter? What is it? That's all they want to talk about. So the one-on-ones, for the first thing they're doing wrong, which we're not going to focus on today, is they make every weekly one-on-one only a pipeline review, which actually is its own thing, right? So what it should be about, FYI, is sort of reviewing the performance metrics that inform coaching. So what most managers focus on is they focus on specific deals where they should be focusing on other behaviors, the expertise, the experience needed to progress the capability of an individual, because you're a coach, right? But all they do is they talk about the deals closing this month. And then the issue with that, Chris, is that if we're talking about the deals closing this week, what are we focusing on? We're focusing on the paint, right? The end of it, because it's the contract negotiation. But if the deal was built on a weak foundation, it really doesn't matter. We're in there too late. So your impact as a manager falls off toward the end of the deal. But every one of you, if you have a manager, or you're reporting a manager or are a manager, know that they want to be involved in the end, particularly with the deals that are going to close, because that's the hero conversation, isn't it? Right? I put the hand of God on it, and Johnny and Sarah, they got those deals in because I gave them a little bit of a push at the end. It's all they needed, right? They don't want to talk about the deals that they weren't involved in and they failed. So,
right, the coffee's only for closers, I hear, right?
Yeah, so absolutely. No room for tea drinkers here, apparently. But anyway, we got to start with fundamentals, and the first thing is a call plan. And you're all like, yeah, I know about call plans. We were taught about call plans. I get it. But Chris, if you think about folks that you've worked with in the past or recently, and the number of meetings where, even particularly if there are more than 2 or 3 of you from your side going to a meeting, what percentage of those do you guess have a written, documented call plan that you've discussed before the call?
I mean, I'd like to put a number on it, but I don't. I think I'm sure it's pretty close to 0. Unfortunately, the idea's there, the thought's there, and if you're lucky, you get like a 3 bullet point agenda that arrives right before the meeting. But that's about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to make up a number because I would be making it up, but I'm going to say I'm like you. It's trending to 0, right? And if you think about me as an individual rep, say, going to have a call by myself without my boss, then I'm pretty sure it is almost, 0.01%. It's going to be like next to nothing. But here's the thing. Here's what we know. If you don't do this, if you don't have a good call plan, you have what I like to call, and some of you may have heard this language, you have a continuation meeting, not a progression meeting.
Ooh.
Right? We had the meeting, and then when I say to my boss says, so what did you get out of that? I say, oh, well, we're going to meet again. Have you set that meeting? No, but he said we should catch up sometime. So it's all good. We had a great meeting, really enjoyed it. I'm like, great. And when I was running field sales organizations, that was my least favorite thing, because they would get in the car, drive to someone, buy them a coffee or whatever it is, right? Spin it out. So they've just spent 3 hours and they come back and there's no progression. So how do we prevent that in a way that's actually applicable? Because most people on the call, and if you have people reporting to you, they're not going to write War and Peace, nor should they, for every meeting. But whether it's a phone call or an in-person meeting, if you can get these 3 things figured out beforehand, and if you're an individual contributor, share it with a peer or share it with your boss before, because you can get pre-call coaching. Very few people do that. What do you think about post-call coaching? But why have the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff? Is that fair, Chris?
Absolutely. It reminds me of the way that we treat most of our healthcare and homeless situations in this country. It's like, where can we put the Band-Aid on as opposed to solving the actual root problem? So I love it.
All right, so let's talk about it. So a friend of mine, Dan Deegan, Triple D, love this guy. He came up with the AAA plan just because it sounded cool, and it works great. So two things I would say to you is this. Number 1, send the formal agenda in the meeting invite. I can't tell you how many meetings. I don't know. Like if I have 20 meetings this week, I've probably got 3 that someone has sent me an actual agenda in the calendar invite. For goodness sake. Everyone should do that so that the other side knows what the expectations are. Maybe they should bring in additional parties to the call. They need to do some preparation. But beyond that, here's where the real meat is. There are 3 things we have to get figured out. First off, what are the answers that we're seeking to gain? So that, of course, that is writing down the questions we're going to ask in advance of the call. That, I'm sure most people, yeah, basic. But how many do it? How many actually write the questions down and say, and because now if I go to Chris as my boss, say, Chris, here's what I think I'm going to figure out in this stage of the deal. What do you think? You might say to me, hey, Matt, but do we know this and do we know that? Oh, you're right. No, we don't. And that is important because I can't progress this deal unless I have that information. Right? So that's why we do the pre-call coaching there. The next one, though, almost no one does. Specifically, when I'm meeting with Chris, what do I want you to do? That's where we get our progression from. Is it an introduction? Is it to agree to a pilot? What is it? And that's really helpful when you're doing a call review with a peer or your boss to say, how do I do? Well, most people, they do this, don't they, Chris? So you hang up the phone, right? We've both been on a call. You're my boss. You look at me, and what do you say? How do
How'd
you
it
think
go?
that went? Yeah. Oh, jinx. And why did I know we were going to say the same thing? Because we've trained hundreds of people in every country. It doesn't matter what culture or language. They all say the same thing. So how do you think that went? And as an individual, it's two things. Well, I don't know. If I didn't have a plan, I could. Oh, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. But what if we had a call plan and we can say, well, we didn't get these answers and we didn't get them to commit to that. Let's learn from that. What could we have done differently, right? And the last thing, because I don't want to labor the point, is attitude. And this is quite nuanced. So please listen to what I'm getting to here. If I'm meeting with Chris and I'm trying to sell him a car, then I don't want most reps would say, oh, attitude, I want Chris to think he needs this car. Oh, like, okay, well, that's a little obvious. But what do you know about Chris? Well, I know he, has X many children and blah, blah, blah. And, he's driving long distance with him to sporting engagements, whatever else. Okay, so what do you reckon the most compelling attitude for Chris to have after this call would be to progress this? Oh, well, actually, I would like him to think that he absolutely has to upgrade his Toyota to a Volvo because it's the safest car in the world. And I want him to believe without our protections, he's putting his children at risk and is a bad parent. Christopher, bad parent. That's the attitude I want him to have, because that attitude is going to have you probably take some action, right?
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the idea of, you often talk about directing your customers' focus and asking them, what does success look like in this relationship, or what does a good outcome look like this, but without taking the time to do it for yourself on each call, how lost you can get to really appreciate. Like, when we make calls all day as salespeople, it'd be great to get off a call, even though a sale didn't close, but know that you are accomplishing something, that you are moving things forward, to be able to have that daily victory, even though the daily deals aren't closing all the time.
That many notches in the belt, right? Today, I had some progress. How do you measure your progress? By successfully delivering on your call plan. So there you go, the AAA plan. I hope you've written it down. And it's so simple. So, if you're an individual contributor, how long is this going to take? 2 minutes? That's a good investment. If you're a manager,
really good.
I will not join any meeting with a colleague or a rep with a customer or prospect unless I see this plan in advance. You do that.
And I'd love.
I'm serious. People build the habit, they build the muscle. And once they've been through a few of these calls, they're like, oh, you know what? I'll even do this for myself. And I've been doing this for this specific AAA thing since 2005, when I learned it from Triple D, right? And I still do it, right? I reckon I could probably do it in my head, but I know the discipline of writing it down is so helpful. So
implementing the AAA, done.
Yeah. Awesome. So that's that's basic. That's for all things. But the question is, how do we lay a foundation for success during discovery, right? And so I want to give you a few acronyms here, some key back pocket discovery items, and walk you through it quickly, right? I don't care what methodology you use, but if we're going to get a deal that progresses, we need to figure out early on who initiated this conversation and why. And if it was you, if you did an outbound and sort of a what's the word? You're challenging them, provocative sale where they didn't know they needed to be talking about it. The question is, why are they taking the meeting with you? You got to figure that out. And are they really the person you should be speaking to? But one thing I'm trying to figure out is, if the job to be done, some of you have heard that language, right, is connected to an economic buyer who is in some way accountable, then they're probably going to write you a check, right? So, for example, if it's an accounts receivable process and you're talking to the financial controller, that's an easy one, right? They care about the problem, they're accountable for it, and they've got the budget to do it. That's awesome, right? And we want to quantify the impact, right? So if we're selling to C-suite agenda items, which are long range and connected to the company, that's one thing. If we're selling to middle management frontline, like the frontline controller, these are departmental concerns. That's another thing. So I guess my point to start with is, are we speaking to the right person, right? And many people say, oh, you've always got to sell to the C-level. Well, really, do you though? Because they think about completely different things to the job to be done, executors on the front line, and they may not care. And many times a deal stalls because you're speaking to someone who just doesn't care. Fair, Chris?
Absolutely. And it's so... if I had $1 for every time I spoke to an executive who had different roles and responsibilities than another executive, I'd be a wealthy man. Often you find your CMO running sales, your CEO is doing this on this company, the different size company, they're doing this completely over there. Some are hands on, some are hands off. Some delegate, some don't. There's a complete different array. And without taking the time to ask them, who is the decision maker and what is your sales process, you're really throwing darts with your blindfold on.
Yeah, and relevance is key. And I won't dwell on it except to give you a funny story from last weekend. A friend of mine is a small-time venture capitalist investor. His friend owns a series of hotels here in Vegas, and he came to him with this idea where he could make $20 million over 5 years. And his friend who owns the hotel interrupted him and said, "Oh, you mean like 3 days worth of receipts from our pool?" Like, it was so irrelevant to this guy, right? And yet sometimes we do that. So make sure you understand who you're talking to. But anyway, what I talk about to really help figure out who's who in the zoo, right, is to take this model from project management called RACI, R-A-C-I. And that's figuring out who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So responsible, right? Responsible is the person who is doing it, right? They've got to do it. Accountable, right, is the person who needs to make sure it happens, right? And so they're very different. Now, here's the thing. Let me take an example of accounts receivable. The responsible person might be the accounts clerk, and you're saying, I can sell you this new system that's going to make your job a lot easier, and you're going to spend less hours in the day doing it, right? The person accountable for that happening is the financial controller above them. Now, do they care that their clerk is working 60 hours a week? Maybe, maybe not, right? But you've got to understand the motivations of the person based on their role for that job to be done. The flip side of it is the clerk might really benefit from it, but it feels like another project to them, and I'm already busy. So why did deal stall? Because I'm talking to the clerk and I say, hey, I've got a 60-hour project you need to do to unlever yourself from this problem. And they're like, hey, look, yeah, we need it. That sounds great. That's excellent. The rep forecasts it. This is awesome. And then they go dead. Why? They're too busy executing. They're still too busy chopping the wood to sharpen the saw, right? So figuring out who's responsible for doing the job, who's accountable for making sure it happens is really critical. Who's consulted, right? So who needs to know that we're going to make a change, right? And get input from the decision criteria. And then lastly, who's informed? So maybe the CFO, hey, just so you know, we're considering a new accounts receivable system.
And this is so important. Sorry to interrupt you there, brother. This is so important too when you talk about what people's motivation is to make a decision. Oftentimes, we'll go to a person and we'll present to their significance, or we'll present to their ability to serve their company or their customers without taking the time to really find out, no, look, this person just wants to look good for their boss because they're accountable for these responsibilities. And so presenting and understanding that can really help you get to that deal close a lot faster as well.
100%. So homework for you folks is just to quickly Google RACI, see those roles, and have a think about that in your deals and who you're really talking to and what would motivate them to take action. And please don't forget that idea. Look, you go to them and say, I'm going to save you hundreds of thousands or a million or whatever else. The question is, yeah, but are they now responsible for implementing that project? And are they compensated? Are they KPIs related to that $1 million?
The risk of it going wrong could be worse for them than the risk of it going, or the potential of it going right.
100%, which leads us to the next, which we don't need to spend a ton of time on, but just to think about, part of your selling process needs to be to figure out who's a user, an evaluator, a decision maker, and an approver, right? All of these roles exist in every single deal, unless you're doing very, very transactional businesses. If it's a buying committee, figure out what the role of the people are in this deal. Last thing, though, is a little less obvious. In the chat, tell me, have you heard, put a yes if you've heard of BATNA. What's BATNA? And it has nothing to do with Batman and Robin. Who's heard of BATNA? Give me a yes.
This isn't the origin of the coronavirus, is it? No, okay, that was a bad joke, y'all. Sorry about that. Let's see. We got no. I got no yeses.
This is great. So this comes from negotiation theory, and what it is, a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, which basically means, what are their alternatives? Hey, thanks, Tracy. Nalini's heard of it. Right, so what are they going to do if they don't do something with you? And you know what the BATNA is that's most common? The reason probably most of you is here is do nothing. That's my best alternative. Just keep doing what I'm doing. So you need to know what their BATNA is, and then the impact or implications of sticking with that, be it a competitor, or do nothing, and have a really good argument against that BATNA. Is that fair?
Very much so.
Most people, when I'm reviewing a deal with a rep, can't tell me what the BATNA is. And you've got to know. And if it is do nothing, it's like, okay, but where's the pain of do nothing? And have we amplified that in the minds of the people that matter? Coming back to RACI and UADA to figure that out. So why is this important? Why is this important? Because we all know that a painkiller is more of a motivator than a vitamin, right? And so if you think about that RACI model, for whom is it a painkiller versus a vitamin? Because guess what? You can't just say it's a painkiller for everyone. It's not. And therefore, we need to target the right people. And the last thing I wanted to chat about was this concept of maps, the importance of maps. There you go. There's a two-scale map of Australia and New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand. I want to just, it's all based on relative importance, people. You understand that? So there's New Zealand. No, I love Australia. I'm actually in Australia. And they can reach me from here, Chris. So I've got to be careful what I say.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm a big Flight of the Conchords guy, so.
There you go. There you go. All right. So this is where the accent comes from. So a mutually agreed plan, The emphasis here is on mutual. Every time I ask a rep to see a mutually agreed plan, they show me a closed plan. See this here? This is an example of a closed plan. No prospect or customer ever received that from a rep in an email and said, oh yeah, that looks good to me. I want you to create a relationship with procurement. That's not helpful. Sure, you can have a closed plan, which is your strategy. You can work through with your boss or your reps, or depending on your role, whatever else. But what you really need to stop a deal slipping is to agree a plan with somebody who has the influence to get it done internally. So this is what it looks like, right? John on their side is going to confirm the project team. We're going to do a design workshop. We're going to do red lines, yada, yada, yada. And we're going to put date-driven descriptions next to it. And here's my pro tip for you. So you have the conversation. I'm selling to Chris. We agreed this verbally. I say, Chris, at the end of this, I'm going to send you a note with a follow-up. Would you be so kind as to confirm it for me? You say, sure. I send you an email. The subject line is meeting follow-up. What do you do with that? What's most likely that you'll do with that email, Chris?
Open it and probably not read it.
Correct. And you'll file it in the round filing delete bin. But you'll think, good one, Matt, at least he's reliable enough to follow up on his commitment. So here's what I do instead. My subject line is, Chris, I think we're wrong on legal. And you're like, what?
Ooh, yeah.
First line in the email, Chris, we've only said 1 week to redline, blah, blah, blah. That feels a little aggressive to me. Would you mind reviewing this and let me know what you think? Now I've got your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you reply to me. You say to me, no, Matt, actually, that's fine. In my experience, we're okay. Everything looks good. Now it's verifiably mutual.
You just got me to confirm. You got me to make a decision that I'm now going to want to continue to support and find reasons to validate that decision as I move through this process.
Yep, and let's stick with that theme, because then next week I'm going to send you an email with the same thing and with the first one crossed off and say, great news, Chris, we're on track. Thanks for your support. Next week, great news, Chris, 2's done. Third week, legal's not getting back to us. Subject line, Chris, I need your help. Your legal department is 3 days behind and I'm concerned that we're going to miss our deadline. Now you are emotionally invested in our mutual success because we've been doing so well and I've been validating your support. You're going to help me, right? That's how I use it practically. So there you go.
You've made this a we. You've made this conversation and relationship a we, and that's so important.
100%. So to recap, what did these two guys say? What Chris and Matt on about? I want to make sure we capture the key points here. Call plans, AAA. I hope you use AAA. And if you're a manager on this call, never accept a meeting with your individual contributor unless they give you a AAA plan in advance so that you have time to talk about it and give them pre-call coaching. If you're an IC, this is a secret weapon. Just use it. Know who we're talking to and why they're talking to us. That's critical. What are their responsibilities? RACI, have a Google on that. So helpful, particularly in enterprise and upper mid-market deals. Mr. Ueda, no, I didn't introduce him, did I? I did this. It was users, evaluators, decision makers, and approvers. We've got to understand the buying roles. What's their escape hatch? The BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Understand that and think about how we defend against that, because that will kill our deals. And lastly, maps. which was, Chris, do you remember what that stands for?
Got me on this one, buddy. New Zealand. That's no.
That's exactly. My aunt's pajamas. No, it's mutually agreed plans. There you go. Mutually agreed plans. That's what we're going for. And some people have mops. I mean, mops are good for cleaning floors, but a prospect doesn't think in terms of mutual opportunity plans, right? Mutually agreed plans is good language to use. So look, Chris, you said I would try to give impact per words minute. I don't know if I did that, but I certainly spoke faster than most people are used to listening to. So there you go. I'm going to close up by saying this. I very much appreciate chatting to all of you folks. And SaaSy Sales Leadership focuses on SaaS businesses specifically. One of the courses that this content is related to is writing winning proposals. So if you write proposals, RFPs, or at least put together custom documents for your prospects and customers, there's a course available. You'll find it on our website, and that's what we get up to. So there you go. That's all I've got to say. I'm going to stop sharing and hand the mic to Chris.
I told y'all. It was no joke. This is one that will get a lot of replays and shares, y'all. Why? Because Matt comes to bring and add value. And as we know in our community, value leads and money follows, right? There's no secrets in this. Why can Matt give away such amazing content? Why can he give it away? Because what we all know is most of us won't put this stuff to work. We won't actually take action on putting these great tools to work, because you actually need to change your behaviors, right? There's great ideas. You all read stacks of books, right? We all got all the sales books, all the strategies out there. But what changes if you don't change? Nothing. So take 1 or 2 steps out of this call, out of this process, and put them into play and create a new habit. What does it take to create a new habit? Commitment and consistency. Both of those things. It takes commitment, making the decision, and then consistent realignment to that behavior. Set a standard for yourself. No more team calls without the AAA process done. No more moving forward past the first introductory call unless you have set your maps up front, right? To get these mutually agreed upon processes and systems. So look, y'all, this is all amazing. And this is why we do what we do at NASP. Because we know that there's amazing content like this out there, but if we don't change, nothing changes. So it's all about having a growth mindset to a fixed mindset, right? Some people think a fixed mindset means you just don't take in new information. No, a fixed mindset means you don't apply the new information. You may have it, you just don't do anything with it. So that's why we talk about growth mindset here at NASP all the time. And as you know, we got content like this coming out on a weekly basis. So I just put in the chat here our join free membership. It's a free membership to one of the largest sales communities in the world. You got nothing to lose there. That's an easy no-brainer. Have you taken our certification yet? Have you worked on what makes you special? And that is being able to take these awesome habits and patterns that got you here today and be able to throw them out in the back, throw them in the garbage with the other ones, and put on the new ones that are going to get you to that next level. Matt was not the same guy 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. This is a guy who steps up every single day, right? And you heard what he said. He's not had a meeting without the AAA process since Triple D gave it to him. Why? Because when he heard something that works, he put it into play. Did he say, I don't know if it's going to work for me, I'll just try something else? No, we put it to work, and he probably went 2-3 months and looked at his results and said, holy shit, look at the changes. Look at the shifts that I've seen. I'm going to keep doing this, right? This is what we're here for. This is what we're here for you for, right? To help you build these new habits. So check out NASP.com, join as a free member. I'm going to stop with the fluff because this guy already dropped some bombs, and I don't want to ruin his insight per word ratio on this call. So we're done here for today, y'all. Check out the replay. Watch this one again. There's a lot of value. Check out SaaSy Sales Leadership.com. Is that correct, Matt?
That is.
All right, SaaSy Sales Leadership.com. Y'all aren't going to forget that one. Check that out. Check out Matt's programs. Check him out. Also follow him on LinkedIn. Dude drops content like this all the time. He's got his own podcast. He's got his own vlog, video blog, all kinds of stuff, and he puts out great stuff. So definitely check him out. He's everywhere. Thank you for joining. We'll see you on the next one, y'all. Have a great day. Thanks, Matt.